Welcome to the Pokemon Crystal finale for this year. Today I'm going to be playing Zangoose and Diggersby. These are backports. These Pokemon don't naturally occur in Generation 2. Zangoose is from Generation 3 and Diggersby is from Generation 6. So why did I pair these two together? Well, the answer is really simple. Throughout this entire year, I've been testing to see if normal types are the best typing for solo challenges in Generation 2. Up until now, if we examine my tier list, that has basically panned out. Kangaskhan has the number one spot in the tier list with a bunch of other normal types following it. Although the bug type did surprisingly well, mostly because those bug types get access to Swords Dance, which I think is one of the best moves in Generation 2, if not the best move. Because unlike in Generation 1, Amnesia only boosts special defense. So the reason I picked these two Pokemon for this year's finale is because they are normal types that get access to Swords Dance extremely early. There is one other normal type that gets access to Swords Dance, and it naturally occurs in Generation 2. That's far-fetched, but I did a stream talking to Snowy about it earlier in the year, so I have sort of covered it. Snowy tends to do many more runs than I do and gets better times overall than what I'm able to achieve on a budget of 3 to 5 playthroughs maximum. Because of that, I don't have high hopes for Farfetch'd, and I thought that Zangoose and Diggersby would be able to do better. Zangoose is a mono-normal type with an erratic growth rate. I did have to backport this growth rate into Generation 2 just to make it work. It levels up very slowly in the early game, as you can see by this graphic, and then as its level gets higher and higher, it needs less and less experience to level up, ending at level 100 with the least amount of experience required out of any of the groups. So put simply, very bad in the early game, very good in the late game. For base stats, Zangoose has 73 HP, 115 attack, 60 defense, special attack, and special defense, and 90 speed. It's a physical attacker that moves decently quickly, and in Generation 2, I have no doubt that it's going to outspeed all critical targets. This is where things get really good. Let's look at the move pool. It starts with Scratch and Leer, then through level up, it gets Quick Attack at 7, and Swords Dance at only level 10. Beyond that, it gets Fury Cutter / Pursuit. At level 31, I have given it Crush Claw, its signature move. It's a normal move with 75 base power and 95% accuracy. The only drawback to using this move is that it has 10 PP. It also has a secondary effect, which is a 50% chance to lower the target's defense. Just so everyone's aware, in these backports, my policy going forward is going to be not backporting other moves unless they are the signature move of that Pokemon. So in this case, that's why Zangoose gets Crush Claw. Beyond that, through level up, it gets two moves I don't think are going to be useful: Detect and False Swipe. By the way, just a brief aside about False Swipe. Every time my wife and I play a Pokemon game together, usually a new generation whenever it's released, she always picks the starter that can't learn False Swipe and then ends up building a team around it that also has no False Swipe users, and then she ends up getting very frustrated because the starter I pick can usually just learn False Swipe, and I have no problems catching Pokemon throughout the entire run. I wonder if that's going to repeat with Generation 10 when they release those games. It probably will. Anyway, with my wife successfully referenced, let's get back on track. Through TM and HM, Zangoose gets access to a lot of coverage moves. It gets some ice moves, some electric moves, some fire moves, even some psychic moves, although those won't be important because I think it's going to exclusively rely on physical moves today with Swords Dance. So viable coverage seems like Rock Smash, Iron Tail, Dig, Shadow Ball, Mud Slap. It does not learn Earthquake, which is kind of a quirk. And then of course it gets the 3 powerful normal type moves: Headbutt, Return, and Swift. The early game of this playthrough is by far the most annoying point with Zangoose because it's just leveling up very slowly. Today the rival's going to be picking the Chikorita team because whenever his Pokemon are neutral against you, it is by far the most difficult opponent to go up against. It has Razor Leaf by Azalea Town, so much better than Quilava and Croconaw, which both have Ember or Water Gun respectively. So in the early game, I'm going to fight a bunch of Pokemon as well as optional trainers because I want to get to level 10 as fast as is possible. Still, I don't want to go out of my way to Sprout Tower and waste time. Zangoose instead goes directly into Falconer's gym and fights Birdkeeper Abe. Of course, it easily has enough damage with base 115 attacks, so I knock out the Spearow in only 3 hits. Doesn't look like I'm going to get to level 10 or anywhere close for Falconer. After defeating Birdkeeper Rod, Zangoose is only level 8. Still though, with a Berry and Quick Attack, I think Zangoose has what it needs. Falconer's first Pokemon is Pidgey. I go for quick attack, it does more than half, so I'm going to two-shot his lead. It's not choosing Mud Slap, so there's no real risk here. Now quickly, I will mention the front sprite and the back sprite were made by me for these back ports. I think I did a really good job with the Zangoose back sprite. I'm really happy with how this one turned out. Okay, Pidgeotto's next. It is doing more damage, and eventually Zangoose consumes its berry, but there's no way that his Pidgeotto knocks me out unless it's getting a ton of critical hits. So Zangoose defeats Falconer and clocks in with a first split of 5 minutes and 15 seconds. Now let's switch over and see the Pokemon it's going to be competing against. Diggersby, the bunny that apparently digs with its ears. The design of this Pokemon is a little unsettling. I grew up having bunnies as pets, and I've always loved these animals, but Diggersby never really did it for me. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but Lopunny feels like the better bunny Pokemon overall. And then in Generation 8 we got Scorbunny, and I was really hopeful. I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, let's just move on from that. I'm still disappointed. Game Freak, can you just please give us a cute non-humanoid rabbit? I would really appreciate that. Okay, aesthetics aside, Diggersby is actually really primed for a fantastic Generation 2 run. It is a normal ground type, and this solves a problem that a bunch of other normal types have been having at the very end of the game. A Pokemon like Granbull that I played back at the beginning of the year, or Ursaring that I played at the end of last year, both struggle against Red because their special defense stats aren't absolutely amazing, and then they take a lot of damage from Red's Pikachu. If they're trying to set up with a move like Curse, then they don't really have a good opportunity to do so against his Pikachu. But when you're playing a ground type Pokemon, this isn't an issue. His Pikachu is absolutely trash. It just spams either Charm or Quick Attack over and over again, and Charm basically just wastes time if you're spamming Swords Dance. It's for this reason I also think that Ursaluna is going to do very well in Generation 2, although I'll tackle that one later. For now, I want to examine Swords Dance users. Diggersby has a medium fast growth rate. This is in some ways better. It's going to level up faster in the early game, but slower by the end of the game. So if it needs a higher level for Red, it might end up suffering a little bit because of this, but overall, I would say this is an advantage in comparison with Zangoose. Leveling up quickly at the start of solo challenges is much more important than leveling up quickly at the end, unless your Pokemon is absolutely trash against the final trainer of the game. Now let's look at its base stats, and this is where this Pokemon kind of falls apart. It has 85 HP, 56 attack, 77 defense and special defense, 78 speed, and 50 special attack. It is essentially a defensive Pokemon, but not really. 77 is not a great defensive stat. I guess it has okay HP, but its attacking stats are absolutely dreadful. And it is slower than Zangoose, although it's not extremely slow. Both the normal and the ground type deal physical damage in Generation 2, so it's a really good thing that Diggersby's attack stat is higher than its special attack stat. And it also starts with Swords Dance. Unlike Zangoose, it does not need to level up to get this move. Its starting set also includes Tackle, Agility just in case you're slow, and Leer to lower the opponent's defense, but that doesn't really make sense when you're just going to be using Swords Dance anyway. For level up moves, whenever I'm doing these backports, I always base things off of the Pokemon's learn set from the first generation it was introduced to the series. I'm trying to get the most outdated information on this Pokemon that I possibly can, and then take that outdated information and put it into an even more outdated game. So if you look at the Gen 6 set for Diggersby, we can see that it has some moves that don't exist in Generation 2. Mudshot, Odor Sleuth, Bounce, Facade, and Hammer Arm. I felt like this one was fairly simple. In Generation 2, Dig has a base power of 60, so I can replace Mudshot with this ground type move. Then at level 26, instead of Odor Sleuth, I give it Sweet Scent. This makes no sense thematically, but at least it interacts with the evasion mechanic. I also don't think it's going to be useful in a solo challenge. At level 42, instead of Bounce, which has a base power of 85, I'm going to give it Fly, which has a base power of 70. Again, this doesn't make thematic sense, but it's a good substitute, at least in terms of effect. Finally, at level 60, it has Hammer Arm, which has a base power of 100 and an accuracy of 90. So instead, I'm going to give it Cross Chop, which has a base power of 100 and an accuracy of 80. Its It's a small nerf, but I don't think the Diggersby is going to be using it as well. One of the reasons I try to go all out on assigning these move pools, even when moves won't be useful in solo challenges, is because I am providing these patch files to all of you if you check out the Discord link in the description. Maybe you also want to do a solo challenge with Diggersby, and maybe for your run you're going to ban Swords Dance, so you're going to have to use a move like Fly at some point in the run. I don't know. I think it's also kind of cool that a ground type gets a flying type move. Okay, now for its TM and HM set. This one is much more limited when compared with the Zangoose's, but it gets Rollout, all 3 ground type moves, Sludge Bomb, and hilariously Surf. It also has the punches, Ice Punch, Thunder Punch, and Fire Punch, but I do want to remind everyone that these are not physical in Generation 2, so they'll utilize Diggersby's lower special attack stat, and that just won't be a good idea when I have Swords Dance and I can spam a move like Return or Headbutt. And mentioning those normal type moves, unlike Zangoose, Diggersby does not get access to Swift. The disadvantages for this Pokemon are starting to stack up, especially because the rival's going to have Chikorita, which is super effective against Diggersby. Although instead of training on optional trainers like Zangoose, I'm going to skip all of them, as well as running away from wild encounters. I go straight for Falconer's Gym, defeating Birdkeeper Abe using Swords Dance and Tackle. This levels Diggersby up from 6 to 7, so it gets access to Quick Attack. This move in the early game might actually be really useful. It gets the same type attack bonus, and it gives Diggersby priority so that it can move first, even against fast threats like Bugsy's Scyther or Whitney's Miltank. The priority isn't relevant against Falconer though, because at level 8, Diggersby is faster than the Pidgeotto by 1 speed. I take my time against the Pidgey, setting up Swords Dance all the way to +6. This gives Diggersby only 64 attack. I'm still really upset by the fact that they gave this thing 56 base attack. They really just wanted to use Swords Dance. I go for Quick Attack, it knocks out the Pidgey in a single hit, Pidgeotto's next. My Quick Attack is not able to one-shot with +6 attack. Anyway, Falconer goes for Gust. It does an okay amount of damage, and then I knock out his ace on the next turn. Getting the Zephyr badge gives me a 12.5% boost to my attack stat and an increase to damage with flying type moves. That could potentially be relevant for Diggersby later on. I had the option of teaching Mud Slap right away, but I decided against it. Diggersby's level 9, at level 13 it learns this move naturally, and I'd rather save the TM. Sometimes it has a niche use later on into the playthrough to lower accuracy. I might as well just keep it for then. Plus, Quick Attack is more than enough to make it through all the mandatory trainers before Bugsy. This fight with Diggersby is essentially free. He leads with a Metapod, a terrible Pokemon to start with. Luckily in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, they updated this, so Scyther is his lead Pokemon, which is kind of neat. Because his lead is Metapod in this case though, I can just set up Swords Dance all the way to +6, then I can set up with Agility. Now, this seems like it's not going to have an effect, but it is, because Scyther also has Quick Attack, so I want to be moving first against it, even in the increased priority bracket. Only a single use of the move is required. That brings Diggersby up to 45 speed when Scyther has 41. I 2-shot the Metapod, 1-shot the following Kakuna, and move on to his ace. Quick Attack does more than half. Scyther goes for Fury Cutter, which does so little, and with that I knock out his ace, earning myself the second badge. Well, just before that I have a chance to learn Takedown. I don't think this is a good idea to teach to Diggersby. I'm gonna get Headbutt very soon. Before I get it though, I have to defeat the rival. This is where we start to get into dangerous territory with Diggersby. And I don't mean against the Ghastly. Since I'm a normal type, all it can do is put me to sleep with Hypnosis and lower my PP with Spite. My solution here is very simple. Use Swords Dance, increase my attack, then one-shot with Mud Slap after I wake up. It takes a while. Next he sends in Bayleaf and I only have +2. As a result, Quick Attack does 1/3 and Bayleaf sets up Reflect. So now I'm doing pathetic damage and Razor Leaf is doing a lot to Diggersby. As a result, I get my first reset here. The solution is to be even slower against the Ghastly. When you wake up, just keep using Swords Dance. I get all the way to +6, then I one-shot with Mud Slap and move on to the Bayleaf. Now before Reflect, I can do more than half. It chooses to go for Poison Powder anyways, so without defenses, I knock it out on the next turn and avoid Razor Leaf entirely. Last is Zubat, I one-shot with Quick Attack, and that's that. In the forest, I grab Headbutt, and I teach this to Diggersby right away. In the Goldenrod Underground, I want to talk about a few optimizations I've made later into this year. After picking up the coin case, which is going to allow me to buy an Abra, I can use an escape rope to get out out of this region. I've also entered through the top entrance, avoiding 2 trainers. One of them is a spinner which you can dodge, and the other one would be mandatory going through that entrance. With Diggersby, I am trying to save as much time as is possible, and you can see that here. So I buy myself an Abra, and then going north of the city, I am even going to skip the guy who has Magmar. Normally I fight him just for experience yields and because he's a spinner that is predictable, and usually I bump into him. Whenever I can clear trainers like this out and then not have to think about them when passing by him the second time, I like to do that. But I want to save time where I can when I have access to a fantastic move like Swords Dance. After chatting with Floria, I head into the national park. Here, I'm going to pick up the TM for Dig, which of course I teach to Diggersby in the place of Mudslap. This move is fantastic at breaking Whitney's combos with rollout. I have agility, I have headbutt and Swords Dance. This moveset is so good. Let's crush her. Clefairy's first. Unless it rolls something like Self-Destruct or Perish Song, I should be fine. It metronomes Sleep Powder. Ridiculous. What a ridiculous thing for it to get. Anyways, I have to sleep for a bit. Then Clefairy mimics Swords Dance. Alright, Diggersby is starting to sweat. It metronomes Reflect on the next turn. Luckily, I'm able to set up. It's not doing much damage with Double Slap. It misses once. I set up with Agility. I have +6 attack, +2 speed, and then I start my sweep. Because the developers hated Diggersby and gave it poor attack, it does not one-shot the Clefairy. I have to 2-hit with Headbutt, which means the Miltank is also going to be a 2-hit. But I'm faster because of Agility. Miltank uses Stomp, doing decent damage, but not enough. My second hit lands, and with that, Whitney is defeated. Her badge gives me a boost to the power of normal type moves by 12.5%, and also a 12.5% boost to my speed stat. Let's go back over to Zangoose now. It is getting close to level 10. Whenever I run into wild Pokemon, I knock them out, although I'm not fighting any optional trainers at this point of the game. Once I arrive at Union Cave, I start to take on some optional battles like this hiker with Onix. Just because it's at a decently high level, it gives pretty good experience yields. I fight the final fire breather inside the cave. He has 1 Vulpix. Defeating it levels Zangoose up to level 10, where I learn Swords Dance in the place of Scratch. Now, unlike with Diggersby, things are marginally more complicated against Bugsy. I can't outspeed the Scyther if it uses Quick Attack, but in all other cases I will be moving first. On my way to Bugsy's Ace, I have a chance to learn Fury Cutter. I guess I'll teach this to Zangoose. I don't think it's going to be useful. Sometimes it is the solution for Whitney, but I'll have Headbutt by that time. Scyther comes in, it doesn't choose Quick Attack, and with that I take a victory over the second gym leader. Rival 2, really simple. Set up Swords Dance a bunch, knock out the Ghastly with Mud Slap, then I am not weak to the Bayleaf, so I don't even really need to worry about it. And that's one of the big benefits of using normal types in Generation 2. They are only weak to fighting type moves, and the only type that really has a resistance against them is the Steel type, because Morty you can always solve with Hidden Power. This move is banned in my first playthroughs, but in follow-up attempts I'm just going to be able to set it to Hidden Power Ground and then crush his team, even with other normal types that don't have the coverage they need. I am thinking about you, Tauros. Also the Bug type Heracross. That thing was so bad against Morty in its first run. By the way, I do want to note the fact that the Bug type still might be in the running for the best type in Generation 2 when considering backports, because we might be able to bring some future bugs back that get access to Swords Dance. I'm thinking about Ninjask, Leavanny, Excavalier, and one of my personal favorites, Golisopod. Okay, unlike with Diggersby, I fought the guy with 2 Magmars in my Zangoose playthrough, and overall, I think this is a mistake. I should be skipping as many trainers as possible. I also go into the national park and pick up the Dig TM. This seems like the right choice, but I'm going to make a case for why it isn't a good idea in my follow-up run. For now, the extra coverage and the ability to break combos on Whitney seemed like a good idea. Zangoose is going to be slower than the Miltank. Here's the thing though, its attack stat is so ridiculous, I can set up very quickly. I get to +4, I was aiming for +6, then Clefairy uses Metronome and gets Baton Pass, switching the Miltank in. I guess I'm going to go for Headbutt now. Miltank starts to roll, Headbutt does massive damage, Rollout takes Zangoose down to 15 hit points, and then I knock out her ace. The Clefairy could be threatening if it was able to survive, but there's no way that's going to happen. Okay, in my first playthroughs of Crystal version, I require myself to battle the Sudowoodo in a fair fight. This is sometimes scary with normal types because it's a rock type Pokemon and it also has low kick. Luckily, it has no idea what it's doing because there's no AI script that governs the move choices of wild Pokemon. With Zangoose, I fight the Kimono Girls next. They are all completely completely simple to defeat. While I'm doing this, I level up to 19. Normally my Pokemon is in the 20s by this point, but that's the erratic growth rate for you. At this level, Zangoose can learn Slash, so I'm going to give up Fury Cutter just so that I have more PP with a normal type move. In some cases, Headbutt will be better if I'm outspeeding and I want to flinch, and in other cases, Slash will be better in the case that I want to roll for critical hits. At this point in the run, I don't think there's any reason for Zangoose to do anything other than the most concise path through the game, so I'm going to Burned Tower to face the rival next. The biggest concern for Zangoose is if it's going to be able to one-shot the Haunter. If it can't, then I'm going to be hit by Curse, which could be problematic, but Dig gets the job done. Magnemite's a one-hit, so is the Zubat. Then without Swords Dance, I have to 3-shot the Bayleaf. I go for Slash here just in case it gets critical hits, but I don't, so it survives on a Sliver. Luckily, Razor Leaf isn't doing enough, and when the Bayleaf doesn't see that it has good damage ranges, it likes to set up on turn 1 with either Growl, Reflect, or Poison Powder. So with that, the rival's defeated. Now let's take on Morty. This fight would be a lot easier if there was some way to get access to Shadow Ball before battling Morty, but he gives you the TM, so you can never use it to defeat his ghost types. This leaves Zangoose in a bad position. If I want to set up Swords Dance on the first turn, then I'm going to be hit by Curse. Each subsequent use of Dig will then drain my HP, which doesn't seem like the ideal play. So I'm going to go for Dig turn 1 and then Swords Dance against the Haunter. Unfortunately, since I'm playing concisely, I didn't pick up the Mint Berry. As a result, I get hit by Hypnosis, Zangoose sleeps a bunch, takes tons of damage by Curse, and that's its first reset. I adjust my strategy slightly in the next battle, this time one-shotting the Ghastly and one-shotting the following Haunter. Maybe Zangoose just has enough attack to one-shot the Gengar as well. Although it looked like I wasn't going to outspeed, but Zangoose levels up from the experience the Haunter gives. This brings it to level 23 and 64 speed, meaning it ties the Gengar. I win the tie, move first, hit with Dig, and Gengar survives. It uses Hypnosis, putting Zangoose to sleep, despite this move only having 45% accuracy when used by the AI. I gotta say, this is frustrating. Then Gengar uses Dream Eater. It does massive damage, more than half. As a result, it's able to 2-hit Zangoose and give me my second reset. Okay, so playing concisely has come back to bite me here. I've learned to do this doing a bunch of races with Steve M Plays and Speedrunner over on my Twitch channel this year. You just don't win when you're playing with fantastic Pokemon and you go and grab the Mint Berry before fighting Morty. It wastes too much time. But then you can lose against Morty if he gets lucky with Hypnosis like he is here. It looks bad whenever it plays out this way, but I could have just beat him the first attempt. For a third time in a row, he puts Zangoose to sleep, and this was it for me. After the Gengar crits with Dream Eater, I decided that I was going to go get the Mint Berry, just to stop bleeding time. Since I'm over here now, I'll go to the lighthouse and clear out a bunch of trainers there as well. This gives me more experience and levels Zangoose up to the point where if I fight Dennis, I will then be faster than the Gengar. Hey, it's nice when Dennis is useful and not just a meme. This might be the first time when battling him actually had strategic value. Now against Morty, things are simple. Just spam Dig, in this case with the Mint Berry. Even if the Gengar puts me to sleep, it doesn't matter. I wake up, knock it out with my second Dig, and move on to the final Haunter. I can one-shot it as well, so that's that for Morty. This is the point in a normal types playthrough that I have to make the choice. Do I go to Chuck next, or am I going to try to avoid him and go for Pryce? I think Zangoose is not going to have many problems against Chuck. Even one reset against him will not waste as much time as skipping Fly would. On my way to Olivine City, I stop and teach Shadow Ball to Zangoose. Remember, this move is physical in Generation 2, so it benefits from Swords Dance. Inside the Fighting type gym, I have to go up against the tag team trainers. Hitmonlee is first, and while it does have lower physical defense, Headbutt is not able to one-shot. Luckily, I flinch, so it's never able to use Jump Kick or Double Kick. Hitmonchan is trash, as you would expect in an early generation Pokemon game. After that, I take on Black Belt Nob. He has a Machop and a Machoke, but they just aren't very good against normal types. With him cleared out, now let's take on Chuck. The solution for this fight is obvious. Set up Swords Dance, then one-shot his Pokemon with Headbutt. Also, the Primeape goes for Rage turn 1, giving me time to set up Swords Dance for what I thought was going to be free. Although, unlike Generation 1, it isn't locked into using this move for the remainder of the fight. So on turn 2, it lowers my defense with Leer. I go all the way to +6, then I get hit by a Karate Chop, which does massive damage, and the Primeape knocks out Zangoose? That has almost never happened. The Primeape has is not the Pokemon I'm supposed to be talking about here. What? Okay, well, I guess I'll do that again. This time, I set up Swords Dance. It Karate Chops before Leer, taking Zangoose down to low health, and with +4, I need to retaliate. Headbutt is able to one-hit, Poliwrath comes in next, Zangoose is faster, Headbutt does massive damage, enough to knock out. So, that's Chuck. He was easy, but the Primeape got me. I'm not feeling good about this fight. Even in a world where I have a fantastic Pokemon like Zangoose, I cannot eliminate the Rocket plotline from Pokemon Crystal. This section of the game is so mind-numbingly boring. Now, some of you are going to say, Scott, you're playing Pokemon Crystal. It's supposed to be boring. At the end of this whole challenge, you're just going to use Curse and Return, and I am going to use Return, but I'm not going to be using Curse. That's the thing about Swords Dance. We have found out this year, if your Pokemon learns Swords Dance, you do not need Curse for the red fight. I have hopefully demonstrated to you throughout the videos that I have produced on the channel this year that Curse is not always the best solution. There are other alternatives, and I hope that next year I'm going to continue being able to demonstrate to you Pokemon that don't need Curse for red. Although, for the majority of Pokemon, it is the best strategy. Crystal is just designed in a way that really centralizes strategies around one particular playstyle, especially in the late game. Okay, all the boring stuff's done now. Let's head into Pryce's gym and absolutely crush this pathetic gym leader. Swords Dance once. I get hit by Icy Wind, lowering my speed. This is annoying. By the way, people earlier in the year took issue with the fact that I said that the accuracy debuff that the AI is subjected to is also the reason that Seal sometimes doesn't lower your speed with this move. That is why it's happening. I know that there is also another glitch with this move, which means whenever the player uses it, there is a 1 in 256 chance that it does not apply the speed debuff. These two things are happening at the same time with the AI, so there is roughly a 75% chance for Pryce's Pokemon to lower your speed with this move. Anyway, all of that's not really relevant because even with the speed debuff, I am faster than all of Pryce's Pokemon. Headbutt one-shots the Dugong, and then Zangoose has the chance to learn Crush Claw. It has slightly more power when compared with Headbutt, so I'm going to teach it in its place for now. After all, normal type moves are not very useful for the next gym leader, and then I'm going to get Return. Pilot's Wine is last. I use Crush Claw for the one and only time in this playthrough, and with that, Pryce is defeated. Okay, let's talk about Jasmine. This fight's a little bit annoying. I'm going to use Swords Dance right away to improve my attack stat, and then I have to rely on Dig. Now, I know that it's not going to be able to one-shot the Steelix with only +2, so I tried to push things a little bit further to +4. Magnemite then hits with Thunderbolt and brings Zangoose down to 9 hit points. It paralyzes me too, but I still have the Paralyzed Cure Berry to heal the status condition. Dig one-shots Magnemite 1 and Magnemite 2 when I arrive at Steelix, but with +4, I am not able to one-shot. Actually, I'm nowhere near close. I tried again, this time only with +2, because then the Magnemite won't deal damage to me, just prioritizing Thunder Wave. Steelix is last. I was hoping to do at least half to it, and in this case, I'm not able to. That means Jasmine's going to use her Hyper Potion, and Iron Tail is doing more than half to Zangoose. This is the first wall I've run into in the playthrough. I'm going to use 2 rare candies to go over a damage rounding threshold to level 33 before trying again. I don't think this choice is premature. Zangoose is likely not going to need them in the late game. Now with +2, is Dig able to 2-shot the Steelix? Well, if I get a critical hit, it will. Jasmine uses a Hyper Potion, then my follow-up Dig brings it to half health, but because this move takes 2 turns, it's able to use Iron Tail and Zangoose faints. I came back to the fight using an additional rare candy, bringing Zangoose up to level 34 just for a little bit more damage. This time though, I get lucky. The Magnemite misses Thunder Wave because of the AI accuracy debuff. As a result of that, I squeeze in one more Swords Dance before it misses Supersonic. Now with +4, I'm definitely going to be able to 2-shot the Steelix. Dig takes it all the way down to red health. She uses a Hyper Potion. Okay, maybe it's going to attack again. In this case though, Iron Tail just barely doesn't have enough damage to 2-shot because I'm level 34. I survive with 3 hit points and knock her ace out. Back to Diggersby. In the section of the game around Ecruteak City, it's going to have different problems when compared with the Zangoose. For example, with its lower attack stat, it's not able to one-shot the rival's Haunter, and I mean just barely. It survives with a sliver of health and inflicts Curse. I thought this might be okay because it can set up Swords Dance and then use Headbutt for the Bayleaf and Double Kick for the Magnemite. The issue though is that the Bayleaf has super effective damage, so I take a loss here to the rival. Apparently with Diggersby, it makes more sense to go to the lighthouse, clear out all the trainers here, and then backtrack to face the rival. tail. Now I should have enough damage to one-shot the Haunter, but before that I'm going to squeeze in one Swords Dance. Then I use Dig. I am taking curse damage every turn, but I have better damage for the Bayleaf, so I can 2-hit using Headbutt. Headbutt one-shots the Zubat. In Generation 2, every turn you knock out a Pokemon, you don't take curse damage, and Double Kick is my solution for the Magnemite. However, it does not take care of it in a single turn. I survive Curse's damage with 21 hit points, meaning that the Magnemite's Sonic Boom does not knock Diggersby out, and with that I defeat the rival, having only 1 hit point remaining. For Morty, I have the Mint Berry. Now, Diggersby is slower than Zangoose, but in this case, it is still able to level up to 27 and get 66 speed, meaning it will move first against Gengar. And Morty sends in his ace second. Dig does more than half, Hypnosis misses a bunch, and then I knock out his ace. There are only 2 Haunters left, and I can one-shot both of them using Dig. Just like with Zangoose, I go to the Cyanwood Gym next. Hitmonlee does not flinch. As a result, it uses Double Kick, the second hit of which crits, bringing Diggersby down to 23 hit points. Now, I made fun of Hitmonchan earlier in the video. Hitmonchan, I apologize for this. I am very sorry, because Hitmonchan in this case has Fire Punch. Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. It has Ice Punch, which is super effective. And when it uses this move on the next turn, it knocks Diggersby out. This is an annoying reset. Anyway, when the Hitmonlee doesn't crit Diggersby, then I just have enough health to survive the Hitmonchan and I make it to Chuck. This fight plays out very similarly. I'm setting up on the Primeape, trying to get as many Swords Dances in as possible. Primeape uses Leer, then Karate Chop, inflicting a massive amount of damage, and I have to use Headbutt. I one-shot his lead, move on to the Poliwrath. Headbutt in this case does not have enough damage. Poliwrath uses Dynamic Punch, and unfortunately for me, it hits. The thing about Chuck is he's never going to wall you, even if you're weak to his fighting type moves. Even if I get unlucky against the Primeape, which does happen in the next fight, Dynamic Punch could miss. He can miss with Hypnosis. He can even miss due to the accuracy debuff if he uses Mind Raider and then follows it up with Hypnosis. Plus, most Pokemon are using Headbutt during this fight, so there's a chance to flinch the Poliwrath. I don't in this case. It once again chooses Dynamic Punch, but this time it misses. Today, the world is fair. The red Gyarados is next. It's actually sort of scary. Headbutt is only doing a third. I flinched the first turn, and then the second turn it hits with Thrash, getting a critical hit. This takes Diggersby down to orange health, but I still pull through with a win. Pryce, okay, we gotta face the Seal. I'm gonna set up with Swords Dance here. It misses an Icy Wind. I go for a second Swords Dance, then it uses Aurora Beam, not lowering my attack stat. Seal, you are absolutely useless. I have more than enough speed to move first against all of Pryce's Pokemon, and with Swords Dance set up 2 times, I one-shot the Dugong as well as the final Piloswine. Diggersby's poorly distributed base stats actually are an advantage against Jasmine when compared with Zangoose. I have more defensive stats, meaning Steelix will deal less damage when choosing Iron Tail, and it might not even choose Iron Tail because I'm a ground type and that resists steel type moves. I don't even know if it resists steel type moves. I gotta look this up. Ground type. The type chart just doesn't stick in my head, especially with types introduced after Generation 1. Does the ground type resist the steel type? Defensive properties of the ground type. It does not resist the steel type. I'm about to spew nonsense. Anyway, getting back to the video, the ground type is immune to the electric type, which means the Magnemites can't really do anything to Diggersby other than use Supersonic or do a little bit of damage with Sonic Boom. Because of this, I can set up more with Swords Dance if I want to. I'm also holding the Bitterberry to counter out Supersonic if it hits. I get to +4, then I knock out the first Magnemite and she sends in Steelix. Will I be able to 2-shot? The answer is yes. I tank an Iron Tail and then knock out her ace. Also, I haven't had to use rare candies with Diggersby, and it is a higher level by this point in the playthrough. This is the advantage of the medium fast growth rate. Time for Petrol. I set up Swords Dance here once. Probably shouldn't have done that. He hits me with a smoke screen, but from there Dig one-hits all of his Pokemon. The rival in the underground seems like he would be complicated, but he really isn't as long as the Golbat doesn't confuse my Pokemon. I set up once with Swords Dance and then one shot with Headbutt, 2-shotting the following Meganium, and from there the remainder of his team is simple. After saving the radio tower director in the basement, I head up into the department store and grab myself the TM for return. I also purchased 5 Carbos for Diggersby to improve its speed stat. I think by the time I'm facing Red, I might be slower than some of his Pokemon like the Pikachu, the Espeon, and the Charizard, but I'm pretty sure I'll be faster than the Venusaur and the Blastoise. I want to make sure that I am though. Okay, I finish up the Rocket plotline. It's simple as you would expect. Let's skip ahead now to Clair. One way that Pokemon usually lose to Clair or to Lance later into the run is being hit by Thunder Wave on one of their first Pokemon. In this case with Diggersby, that isn't a threat. I can set up Swords Dance here without too many worries. The first Dragonair does have Surf, but it's not doing that much damage. Still, I think I only need one turn of setup. I one-shot the first Dragonair and the second Dragonair, and then she sends in Kingdra. I thought that it was going to survive a single hit from return, but Diggersby gets a critical hit, so I knock out her ace, move on to the final Dragonair, and clean it up. Okay, Swords Dance is good. I'm going to play concisely, skipping the Whirl Islands candy and the Mount Mortar candy. The rival in Victory Road is pretty simple. His lead is Sneasel, and it doesn't have any Ice-type moves, so I can set up with impunity here with Swords Dance. After that, I just sweep his team using Return. With this win, Diggersby is ready for the Elite Four. Zangoose is going to catch up really quickly. I did find another use for Crush Claw. Here against Executive Petrol, I could be using Dig for super effective damage, but Crush Claw does a little bit more total damage, plus it's going to one-hit. There's a 5% downside here that I could miss, but overall, using any of my moves should be good enough here after one setup with Swords Dance. And that's just kind of the story for Zangoose. I get confused by the rival's Golbat, then it hits with Wing Attack after Zangoose hits itself in confusion, leaving me on only 26 hit points, well, 29 after I level up for the remainder of the battle. Here's the thing, Dig, super effective against the Magnemite and the Haunter. Crush Claw one-shots the Sneasel, it's pretty frail, and the Meganium, which is much more bulky, also goes down to a single hit. Okay, so now I'm actually done with Crush Claw. For Clair, I'm going to be using Return. In this case, no setup with Swords Dance, I'm just going to be sweeping right away, and I one-shot all three of the Dragonairs. Kingdra's next, I two-shot with Return, she uses a Hyper Potion. It does get annoying here with Smokescreen, but luckily Zangoose doesn't miss. Before the league, I have to battle the rival one more time, and just like with Diggersby, the fact that he starts with a Sneasel makes this entire fight simple. So now, let's see how these two beastly Pokemon do during the Elite Four. There is the potential to play safer against Will using a Bitterberry instead of a Paralyzed Cureberry. I literally just don't want to switch the held item that Zangoose currently has. With the Bitterberry, it would be easier because then I could set up on the first Xatu and avoid Confuse Ray. However, in this case, I have Shadow Ball, which is super effective, and it's able to one-hit the Xatu anyway, so I don't think I need setup. I one-hit the following Jinx, then on an Executor, which is more bulky and defensive. It's going to take time with Leech Seed, and I also take my time with one Swords Dance. From there, the remaining three Pokemon, even the Slowbro, are all one-hits. Koga's a different story. The Ariados can be annoying with Double Team and then baton passing this into the Fortress, but today I'm not concerned about that. Even if I get poisoned, I'm not particularly concerned because I think Zangoose is going to one-hit everything after it gets significant setup in. With +4, I knock out the Ariados, it doesn't baton pass. From there, one hit the Venomoth, two hit the Fortress, just barely, one hit the Muck, and one hit the Crobat. That brings us to Bruno. Technically, he has a type advantage, although the Hitmontop's moveset is Pursuit, Quick Attack, Dig, and Detect. So it's never going to hit us for super effective damage, and it loves to use Dig, which is a 2-turn move, giving me time to set up Swords Dance. At +6, I'm sure you can guess what happens. I one-hit the Hitmonlee, the Hitmonchan comes out sneaking in a Mach Punch, bringing Zangoose down to 30 hit points. Machamp falls to a single return, and that leaves only the Onix. I can't use Dig here because then I'll get hit by Earthquake for 2 times damage. Instead, I'm going to use Shadow Ball, which is neutral and gets the job done. Karen's Umbreon is annoying as always, starting things off with Sand Attack, lowering my accuracy. I squeezed in one Swords Dance, and from there I one-shot the Umbreon, the Vileplume, Shadow Ball takes care of the Gengar, and then I go back to Return for both the Murkrow and the Houndoom. I don't miss once, so this is a clean sweep for Zangoose. You might think Diggersby would have more problems against Will since its speed stat is lower, but no, it's faster than all of his Pokemon right now at only level 46. I knock out the first Xatu, level up. From there, the remainder of his team is really easy, although the Slowbro does survive a single hit, wasting a little bit more time than was the case with Zangoose. Things are basically identical for Koga, although the Crobat is faster than Diggersby by 3 speed, so it moves first with Double Team and wastes some of my time while Diggersby misses. This could have turned out badly if it had, say, got a critical hit or attacked more times with Wing Attack without me being able to land a return, but accuracy lowering tactics are not nearly as good as they are in Generation 1, so Crobat goes down, Muck's last, and I have Earthquake for it. Okay, for most normal type Pokemon prior to Bruno, I would be using rare candies, but I haven't done that today. Even with its low base attack stat, Diggersby doesn't need full setup to make it through this fight with a series of clean sweeps. At +4, the Machamp is a one-hit, and the Onix is a one-hit using Earthquake. Diggersby has an easier time against Karen because Umbreon misses with Sand Attack and then uses Feint Attack. From there, I sweep her team. I don't really know what to say about these battles. Honestly, I'm just saying like sweep, one hit, like set up Swords Dance. That is all these Pokemon do. They just set up and then they basically win. Unless you get unlucky with Double Team or Minimize on Koga, or you just completely misclick somehow on Bruno's Machamp and it hits you with a critical hit from Cross Chop. I honestly don't know how you can lose these battles. But all of that is about to change because Lance is next. For Diggersby, this fight starts off immediately in a bad place because Gyarados is first. Now, normally it likes to set up with Rain Dance, and I thought that would be an advantage. Then with +2 from Swords Dance, I can use Return to knock it out, and I do successfully get the one hit. Okay, that's good. If I had failed the one hit there, then a Rain Boosted Surf would have been devastating. Dragonite number 1 is next, I go for Return, and I get the one shot. Dragonite number 2 is still level 47. Here, I decided to play a little bit more conservatively and squeeze in one more Swords Dance to ensure that I would one-hit the Aerodactyl, which resists Return. However, this is just a bad call. The Dragonite then uses Hyper Beam, gets a critical hit, deals massive damage. I'm able to set up fully as a result and knock the Dragonite out, but the Aerodactyl is faster than Diggersby by 1 speed. As a result, it moves first, hits with Hyper Beam, and Diggersby faints. Setting up more with Swords Dance was the right choice. The first Dragonite is able to survive when I attack with only +2. This gives it a chance to use Blizzard, and this can do a lot of damage to Diggersby. I knock it out, move on to the next Dragonite. Here, I probably should have continued my setup, but this time I just knock it out, going through with +2 for the rest of the fight. Aerodactyl chooses Ancient Power, gets an Omni Boost, slowing my victory against it down. Then it uses Hyper Beam, and I am left with 1 hit point. The fact that I didn't go for another setup turn with Swords Dance comes back to bite me now. While I am able to knock out the Charizard in 1 hit, the following Dragonite survives and uses Outrage. There is a really simple solution here for Diggersby, although I want to mention how painful it is. Look at my level, it's 50, and I am about to level up to 51. Like, the tiniest amount of experience is needed. Even the little percentage indicator that I have coded is saying it's at 100%, so there must be like 5 experience remaining. Anyway, I can use 2 rare candies, sacrificing all of this experience, but leveling Diggersby up to 52, where it has 137 speed. This means it's going to move first against the Aerodactyl. By the way, I shouldn't be trying to set up twice on the Gyarados, then this can happen. Now, that was a critical hit. Without a critical hit, I will survive the Surf with half health, and then I outspeed the remainder of Lance's Pokemon, and I can just one-shot all of them using Return. I'm going to mention one funny fact here, which is when Diggersby levels up to 53 after knocking out the Aerodactyl, it has the chance to learn Headbutt, and this move is actually quite good in the late game of Crystal, so I'm going to teach it again in the place of Double Kick. With that, Diggersby clears out the remainder of Lance's team and clocks in with a league split of 56 minutes and 14 seconds. Zangoose, on the other hand, is going to have no problems against Lance. It easily outspeeds the Aerodactyl, and the Gyarados isn't a threat because I'm only a normal type. I could have set up more here, but why would I do that and waste time when Return one-shots every single one of Lance's Pokemon at just +2? We are going to skip right to the blue fight because all of Kanto is straightforward. Zangoose doesn't change its moveset, and I do no optional training. Also, Zangoose outspeeds every single Pokemon in the game by this point, so it's never going to be moving second. With +4, I'm able to one-shot the Rhydon using Dig, although not the best choice. I think I probably should have gone for Shadow Ball here to avoid Earthquake doing double damage. It is fairly safe though to go for Dig turn 1 against the Rhydon, just because it loves to use Sandstorm. This weather effect does decent damage every turn, and it actually accounts for a significant amount against Zangoose, bringing me to orange health, but that's essentially all that blue is able to do to me. With him defeated, I have 4 rare candies, so I use them all before red, going up to level 69. Nice. Against red, I think Zangoose has one threat, which is the Pikachu. If it paralyzes me, things are gonna go badly. Turn 1, I can just go for Swords Dance. If the Pikachu chooses Charm, then the first turn is essentially just a waste of time. If it chooses Thunder, then maybe it'll miss, and that's exactly what happens on the second turn in battle. From there, with just +2, I'm gonna try to sweep red's team. I one-shot the Pikachu and the Espeon, of course, they're both pretty physically frail. Then Snorlax comes in, and this is a Pokemon that has a good chance of surviving Zangoose's return. Well, Well, it doesn't. It doesn't survive. It goes down to a single hit. Zangoose is an absolute monster. Venusaur's next, of course, one shot with return. Charizard follows. It's also a one hit, and that leaves only Blastoise, by far the most physically defensive of the 3 starter Pokemon, but it also can't survive. So with that, Zangoose clocks in with a ridiculous first playthrough time. 1 hour, 9 minutes, and 26 seconds, with 7 resets, 0 blackouts at level 70. This is a game time of 4 hours and 19 minutes. Things are pretty much the same with Diggersby, at least on blue. Here I can set up Swords Dance against the Pidgeot. I am not faster than every Pokemon in the game though, but I am faster than every Pokemon on this team. After getting my attack stat to +4, I decide to sweep. I one-hit the Pidgeot, he sends in Gyarados next, I one-shot it with return, then Executor comes in, he's sending in Pokemon that have a type advantage over Diggersby, but none of them get a chance to attack. The Alakazam might be fast, but it's not fast enough. Return one-shots the Arcanine, I didn't even need to move my cursor and use Earthquake. Last is Rhydon. I guess I'll move my cursor here, and Earthquake gets the one shot. Prior to Red, I'm about to level up to 62, so instead of wasting another level of experience, I do a little bit of wild grinding. Then I use my 5 remaining rare candies to bring Diggersby up to level 67 before trying Red. Like I said earlier in the video, Diggersby should have an easy time against Red because I can set up for free essentially against the Pikachu. Any turn that it uses Charm is just wasted time, and the only other thing it can do to me is choose Quick Attack, and you can see that that move is not doing a lot. Diggersby is faster than most of Red's Pokemon, but the Espeon is going to outspeed with 184 speed, and the Charizard is going to just barely outspeed with 179. Diggersby only has 177. But for free, I can get set up to +6. Pikachu goes down, Venusaur is next, it's a one hit, then Blastoise comes in, and it's also a one hit. From here, things get a little bit more difficult. But since Diggersby is at full health, Espeon chooses Reflect instead of attacking and then gets one shot. Snorlax is next. It is able to survive a hit because of Reflect, however, it chooses Amnesia, again because my health is high. That leads to Charizard, which is not going to be good against me, even though it does survive a hit and then use Flamethrower. This does more damage than I was expecting, bringing Diggersby down to around half health, but I two-shot, and with that, Diggersby clocks in with its first playthrough time. 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 10 seconds, with 7 resets, exactly the same as Zangoose, 0 blackouts at level 68. This is a game time of 4 hours and 29 minutes. Put side by side, here are the timelines for these playthroughs. You can see that Diggersby has a small advantage in the early game getting access to Swords Dance from the start, whereas Zangoose did have a slower beginning to the game. However, Zangoose's Chuck Split was much faster when compared with Diggersby, but throughout that section of the game they were still very even, having a Pryce split that is hard to differentiate visually on this graph. But then things changed up a bit. Zangoose had a brutal Jasmine, whereas Diggersby had a brutal Lance, and by that point in the game it just couldn't claw back a victory. Looking at these splits comparisons shows just how close these Pokemon are to each other throughout the entire playthrough. The widest difference is at the end of the game, with Diggersby finishing 2 minutes and 43 seconds apart. But there were times when just seconds separated these Pokemon, like against Pryce where Zangoose was 3 seconds ahead. If we look at the level by trainer graph, you can see Diggersby's medium fast growth rate level advantage playing out in the early game, and then you can see how the erratic growth rate gives Zangoose the advantage later into the game, although the differential between the levels is still very small. The final graph that I want to show you here is the game time by trainer graph, and these two Pokemon are incredibly close together. I think if you looked at this graph like a little bit further away or at a small resolution, you might think that there is only one Pokemon graphed here, because these lines are so close together. Okay, let's get into follow-up runs, and I'm going to try and say something intelligent and salient about these Pokemon. For Diggersby, ironically the earliest sections of the game are the most difficult. Here against Birdkeeper Abe in Faulkner's gym, you can see I have done this on minimum battles, so Diggersby is only level 6, and this fight is very sketchy, but it can win. I pull through with 3 hit points, level up to 7, and learn Quick Attack. So no optional battles are needed before Faulkner, but I am going to do 4 of them after him. Ralph the Fisher, this hiker inside of the cave, and then this bug catcher inside of Bugsy's gym. If I went back and did this playthrough again, I think I would cut these 3 battles just to save more time, because as you can see here against Bugsy, Diggersby does not need the extra experience. Knowing that I need to set up to full on the Ghastly is basically all Diggersby needs for this battle. I do want to touch on the damage ranges from Razor Leaf though, because you might be curious about these. With a normal hit, it does between 39 and 46% damage, but with a critical hit, it does between 71 and 86%. I was pushing things in this fight going in damaged. Maybe that would have come back to bite me had he got a lucky critical hit, but without one, I win on my first attempt. North of Goldenrod City, I fight the 4th optional trainer of the run, the Fire Breather with 2 Magmar. After that, we are going to be on minimum battles for the remainder of the playthrough. After defeating Whitney, I grab Hidden Power, and for this run it is going to be Hidden Power Ground. It's a nice upgrade over Dig, at least throughout the mid-game. And it's immediately useful against the rival in Burned Tower. Now I can set up Swords Dance in the first turn, letting the Haunter use Curse. Previously this would be bad for Diggersby because then I would take damage every time I use Dig, but with Hidden Power I'm going to be attacking every turn and taking less from Curse overall. The only Pokemon that takes more than 1 hit in this battle is the Bayleaf, it just takes 2. Before Morty, my speed is 64, tied with the Gengar, so I use 1 rare candy going up to level 27 before fighting him. This is not strictly required, but Diggersby holding on to rare candies for the late game is not going to be that important. The finish level is essentially irrelevant for both of these Pokemon. That is so rarely the case in Pokemon Crystal playthroughs because you're usually optimizing trying to get the perfect level for Red at the very end of the game. He is by far the hardest trainer. For Diggersby, other than Abe, I think Chuck is maybe the most inconsistent trainer because the Primeape can do decent damage and I'm going to set up as much as I can here. I only get to +4 and that means I'm going to 2-shot the Poliwrath. I can either get a flinch to win or have Dynamic Punch miss, so it's pretty likely that Diggersby is going to pull through with a resetless win, and if I have one reset here, it's not going to waste that much time. In this case, I make it through the fight flawlessly. Okay, we're going to do a time jump similar to the one at the end of the 2nd season of Battlestar Galactica. So next, we are going to examine the fight against Bruno. With only 2 uses of Swords Dance, I have damage ranges to knock out all of his Pokemon in 1 hit. Note Diggersby's moveset: Return, Swords Dance, Headbutt, and Earthquake. I don't need anything else for the rest of the game. Karen, standard stuff here. I can lose if she gets a good Sand Attack or a Confuse Ray in from the Umbreon. In this case, she gets both. However, Diggersby hangs on with 15 health, snaps out of confusion, and then one-shots the remaining members of her team. Prior to Lance, I'm going to work around the problems I had before, but this time I'm just going to go overboard, using all 4 rare candies to bring Diggersby up to level 55 before starting the fight. As I mentioned before, I can set up to +4 on the Gyarados, and with that I can one-shot sweep Lance's team. And now another massive time jump all the way to Red. I have used no more rare candies prior to him, but I've collected 3 more, so I use those, bringing Diggersby up to level 67 again before taking on the final trainer of the run. It's simple: set up on the Pikachu, sweep the rest of his team. Now I did purchase 6 Carbos in the department store, so I am now 1 speed faster than the Charizard, leaving Red with only the Espeon moving first. This whole playthrough is absolutely trivial. Diggersby clocks in with a 2nd playthrough time of 1 hour 5 minutes and 21 seconds. 0 resets, 0 blackouts at level 68. This is a game time of 4 hours and 15 minutes. I think if I came back to this one and tried it again, I could cut those 4 optional trainers from earlier in the run, maybe be speed tied or underspeed the Charizard, but it still wouldn't impact Diggersby's absolute dominance. Okay, time to go to Zangoose, and I think this Pokemon might be designed for solo challenges. It genuinely feels like the developers, when they made it, were thinking of this format and trying to put all of the things that make a Pokemon fantastic here into a single Mon. High physical attack, Swords Dance very early on, an erratic growth rate so you can use your rare candies early into the playthrough, and then later into the run you're going to have fantastic moves like Return and the Pink Bow to make them even better. In the last playthrough, really the only thing holding Zangoose back was Jasmine, but in this case I have Hidden Power Ground to solve her. Now early on I am going to fight some optional trainers with Zangoose because the erratic growth rate is really quite bad in the earliest stages of the game. This is a small concession that I'm making, and I played a 2nd run with Zangoose trying to go as close to minimum battles as was possible. I arrived at Whitney at only level 15 and found out that she's actually quite brutal. I had multiple resets trying to defeat her, so I came back in and did a 3rd playthrough, trying to make the early game just a little bit more conservative to get a more reliable result. Fighting a single bug catcher prior to Birdkeeper Abe allows Zangoose to win at level 6. Then I have Quick Attack, which makes Falconer possible. Then I fight the 3 optional trainers that I fought with Diggersby prior to Bugsy. Because of the erratic growth rate, Zangoose ends this fight at level 13, and this is very close. Scyther brings me down to 5 hit points before I knock it out. I also add in Magmar Guy to stabilize this route just a little bit, and that allows Zangoose to get to Whitney at level 17. With 3 turns of Swords Dance, I don't have a guaranteed 1 hit on the Miltank, only an 85.6% chance. If I remove the optional trainers and do this fight at level 15, then Headbutt's going to be a 2 hit on the Miltank. Also, it is worth noting that 2 Swords Dances still gives you the same damage range when you're level 15, so it doesn't make sense to try to set up 3 times. With only 1 Swords Dance, my damage range is a 1 hit on the Clefairy and a 33% chance to 2 hit the Miltank. I'm going to take a little bit of damage from the Clefairy in most cases, sometimes more if it gets good moves with Metronome. I think if you really do want to get Zangoose's time as low as is possible, you should just do this fight at level 15. Like, Zangoose is capable, I just want to beat the game with every single species, and get decent results with all of them. And when that's the ultimate goal, I have to conserve my time overall and not do like 15 Zangoose playthroughs. Okay, jumping ahead to Jasmine. For this fight, I'm going to use rare candies prior to it to level up as much as possible. I want a minimum of level 33, but in this case I get to level 34. This allows me to 2-shot the Steelix after only 1 turn of setup with Swords Dance. This damage range is critical because the Steelix can 2-shot Zangoose when using Iron Tail. Okay, from there, let's talk in general about movesets. For the early game, Zangoose is going to run Scratch, Swords Dance, Headbutt, and Quick Attack. I want to skip all other level up moves and TM moves. Things like Fury Cutter and Dig are just a waste of time. In the mid game, then I have Slash, Swords Dance, Headbutt, and Hidden Power Ground. I want to skip all other moves once again because they're a waste of time. Shadow Ball and the Elemental Punches seem like they might be useful for some niche scenarios, but no, they're just a waste of time. Whenever someone says, why didn't you use Fire Punch during a battle, the answer is almost always, it's because it's a waste of time to go and pick up the TM just to have a good damage range against a single Pokemon in the playthrough. Sometimes it makes more sense to risk a specific battle with a moveset that's a little bit more concise because you're going to save time even if you reset 1 or 2 times. In this case though, with Zangoose, there's just no reason why you would want a special move, and Shadow Ball just wastes time opening your inventory and teaching the TM, when Return is just around the corner in the late game. It becomes the replacement for Slash. I keep Headbutt on my moveset, and I use Hidden Power Ground and Swords Dance still. I know that Zangoose doesn't have access to Earthquake, but this feels very similar to Kangaskhan's run, where it just continues to use Hidden Power Ground because its attack stat is high enough. Here's the thing though, Kangaskhan didn't have Swords Dance. Because I want to be setting up against Red's Pikachu, I should be running a Paralyzed Cure Berry, but I'm using the Pink Bow instead. This is just a mistake. Paralyzed Cure Berry is far superior because then I can avoid paralysis from Pikachu's Thunder. I think a lot of people assume the Leftovers is the correct item for this battle in most cases, and usually that's the case, but for Zangoose that just makes no sense. The Leftovers prints more text, which wastes frames, and Zangoose wants to be as speedy as is possible. Unlike other Pokemon that have generic movesets, Zangoose is skipping Curse, Protect, and this powerful held item. Put quickly, with Zangoose, don't get any of the normal stuff. Just be as brain dead as possible and spam Swords Dance if you're worried about a battle. Other than that, use Return. By the way, I only healed a single time in all of Kanto. It was in the Viridian City Pokemon Center. After that, Zangoose just profits. For Red, there's a couple loss conditions. Number 1, the Pikachu paralyzes me and doesn't give me 1 free Swords Dance. Another one would be the Pikachu gets a critical hit with Thunder. However, I do want to mention that this would require the Pikachu to use a follow-up Quick Attack on the next turn, because Thunder, with a critical hit's maximum damage roll, is 96%. And with only a single Swords Dance, Zangoose is able to one-shot every single one of Red's Pokemon. It clocks in with a dominant third playthrough time of 1 hour, 1 minute, and 23 seconds, with 1 reset, 0 blackouts at level 69, with a game time of 3 hours and 58 minutes. One of you is going to be wondering, where was the reset? It was against Jasmine because her Steelix critical hit me. Okay, so let's get to the tier list and rank these 2 backports. They did really well as normal types. Diggersby was 15 seconds behind Scizor, so it beats out Scyther and takes what is currently the 3rd place of the tier list. But not for long. It's going to be demoted to 4th place because Zangoose came along and did the best of any Pokemon so far. It beats out Kangaskhan and takes the 1st place spot. Okay, let's look back across the year and just reflect on some of these runs. At the very beginning of the year, I played Granbull and Clefable, which are now not looking like the most amazing Pokemon, but when I played them, they did quite well. Later into the year, I played Pokemon like Furret and Raticate. The Kanto Rodent didn't do so well, but the Jotonian Rodent was fantastic. Unsurprisingly, Diggersby, Kangaskhan, and Zangoose did fantastically. When I initially planned this year, I was expecting them to get fantastic results. I do have to say, I thought that Zangoose was going to get a sub-hour time just a little bit easier, and I do think that that's possible for it, but I would have to push for it rather than just easily achieving it. When I reflect on all these results from this year, the surprising thing is not how good normal types are. Yes, they're good, but normally it's for factors other than their typing. They have a good move like Swords Dance, so their move pool helps them through the game, or they have a good move pool with a good growth rate, like for example Zangoose. I think the surprising thing was how good the bug types did. Scizor, Scyther, Cleavor, Pinsir, and even Heracross. across. That is 5 bug types in the S tier, something that I could never hope for in a game like Generation 1. I'm really looking forward to playing bugs like Scissor and Scyther in later generation games because I think they're also going to do quite well there. These results also start to prove something that I started to realize at the end of last year. I played Elekid and then I played Raikou, and the baby Pokemon did better than the legendary in its first playthrough. The only reason this happened is because Elekid's move pool was so much more diverse than Raikou's was. I think the results from this year really prove to us that move pool is largely king in these games. Zangoose, Scissor, Diggersby, Scyther, Kleavor, and Pinsir all have Swords Dance. That means of the top 8 Pokemon in the tier list, only 2 of them do not utilize Swords Dance, and both of those Pokemon are normal types, Kangaskhan and Furret. So I think after this year focusing on normal types, I can say that this typing is fantastic for a playthrough of Generation 2. Right now, it is the dominant type overall, but there is one thing more dominant than the normal type, and that is move pool. If you have access to Swords Dance, Pokemon tend to do very well. In the end, in Pokemon Crystal, move pool is king, and if you don't have a fantastic move pool, then you end up ranked lower than you otherwise should be. Some examples of that are Raikou, Tauros, Gengar, Ariados, Venomoth, Piloswine, Blissey, and Chansey. For next year, instead of focusing on a single type, I'm going to choose Pokemon based on their move pools. I'm going to be selecting some that I think have the chance at greatness, and others which are going to be absolutely terrible. Thanks for watching my Crystal version series this year. It has been so much fun. If you support me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships, it means the world to me. Now, if you have made it this far, you are incredible. I'll see you in tomorrow's video when Daily December continues.